Congratulations, you just declared war on the galaxy's deadliest species. Congratulations, High Admiral Vorzak. Your brilliant military strategy has successfully conquered the small blue planet in the outer rim. The inhabitants call it Earth and themselves humans. What fascinating specimens they will make in our zoological gardens. Commander Drex announced, his tentacles waving in what passed for enthusiasm among the Crosian species. I shifted uncomfortably in my command chair. Something felt off. And casualties? What's our loss ratio? Drex's compound eyes blinked rapidly. Well, that's the most remarkable part, sir. We lost approximately 73% of our invasion force. 73%? I roared, my exoskeleton plates flaring in alarm. And you are congratulating me. Have you completely lost your neural function? But, sir, we won. The human governments surrendered after we destroyed their major cities. The remaining resistance is scattered and disorganized. Our occupation forces are establishing control as we speak. I slumped back, feeling the weight of so many lost Crosian lives. Show me the battle statistics again. The holographic display flickered to life. Numbers and graphs displayed the most catastrophic victory in the history of the galactic Crosian Empire. We had arrived with 15,000 ships and nearly 7 million troops. We were returning with 4,050 ships and fewer than 2 million survivors. How did a pre-FTL civilization manage this level of damage? They shouldn't even have had energy weapons. Lieutenant Caxi, our intelligence officer, stepped forward. Sir, they didn't. At least, not many. They fought us primarily with chemical propellant weapons and combustion vehicles. That's impossible. I have the footage, sir. The main view screen switched to battlefield recordings. I watched in horror as human soldiers, tiny, fragile-looking creatures with only 2 arms and no natural armor, charged directly into Crosian plasma fire. For every 100 humans that fell, one would get close enough to lob one of their primitive explosive devices, taking out 5 or 6 of our troops. They call those grenades, sir, Caxi explained. Simple, but effective. The footage changed to show a Crosian Walker unit, a 30-meter-tall battle platform, being swarmed by tiny human vehicles. The humans were attaching explosives to its legs. The Walker toppled, crushing dozens of the humans, but hundreds more poured forward. What are they doing? Don't they value their lives? I asked, genuinely confused. That's what makes them so dangerous, sir, Caxi said quietly. They value something more than their individual survival. They call it freedom, and they are willing to die for it in numbers that defy all strategic logic. Commander Drex made a nervous clicking sound. There's something else, sir. The surrender, it wasn't exactly official. What do you mean, not official? I felt my gastric sac clench with dread. The major human governments did issue formal surrenders after we destroyed their capitals. But there's been no cessation of hostilities. Our occupation forces are reporting attacks every hour. The humans are using something called guerrilla warfare. They strike quickly from hiding, then disappear back into the population. I rubbed my eye stalks wearily. So we haven't actually won. Technically we have, Drex insisted. We control their orbital space, their major population centers, and their global communication networks. And yet our troops keep dying. I turned to Caxi. Lieutenant, what do your intelligence reports suggest we do? Caxi's mandibles twitched uncomfortably. Sir, based on human history and psychology, we have 3 options. 1. Full planetary genocide. Unacceptable. The Emperor wants human specimens and Earth resources, not a dead world. 2. Commit at least 30 million more troops to complete the occupation, with expected losses of at least 60% over the next decade. Also unacceptable. The Empire won't sustain those losses for a single planet. Or 3. Negotiate. The command bridge fell silent. In the 8,000-year history of the Crosian Empire, we had never negotiated with a defeated enemy. Negotiate? With primitives? Drex finally sputtered. They may not have our technology, Quaxi replied, but they have demonstrated remarkable adaptability. Look at this. The screen showed a human holding a captured Crosian plasma rifle. The human had somehow modified it to mount on a primitive wheeled vehicle. They reversed-engineered partial control of our weapons in less than 2 weeks of combat, Quaxi said. Their learning curve is concerning. I stared at the human in the image. So small, so soft-looking, and yet. Get me a direct communication link to their remaining leadership, I ordered. It seems we need to talk. Sir, gasped Drex. The Emperor will have your carapace mounted on his wall. The Emperor isn't here watching his invasion force get decimated by creatures who haven't even left their own solar system, I snapped. Lieutenant Quaxi, prepare a full strategic assessment of human combat capabilities. Commander Drex, gather all intel on human diplomatic protocols. If I'm going to negotiate with these humans, I want to know exactly what we are dealing with. As my officers scurried to follow orders, I studied the battle footage again. A human soldier, bleeding and missing a limb, dragging himself forward to place an explosive under a Crosian transport. What kind of species does that? I wondered aloud. The most dangerous kind, I feared, and we had just made them very, very angry. 3 rotation cycles later, I found myself facing a human delegation aboard our command vessel. For security reasons, we directed an atmospheric barrier between us. Humans required higher nitrogen levels and couldn't tolerate our methane supplements. The lead human, a female called Admiral Patel, stood rigidly across the barrier. She was darker-skinned than some of her companions, with silver-streaked black fur on her head. Despite being physically unimposing, something about her bearing made my antennae twitch nervously. Admiral Vorzak, she said through our translation matrix, your request for negotiation has been recognized. However, I should inform you that I represent only the United Earth Defense Coalition, not all human factions. Many refuse to recognize your right to exist, let alone negotiate. I couldn't help but emit a chittering laugh. Our right to exist? We control the orbital approaches to your planet. We have destroyed your major cities. Admiral Patel didn't blink. And yet, here you are, requesting talks rather than accepting our surrender. That suggests your victory is less secure than you'd like us to believe. Beside me, Commander Drex vibrated with anger. Insolent mammal. Your species loses 1,000 lives for every Crosian warrior. And there are 8 billion of us, Patel replied calmly. How many Crosians can you sacrifice, Commander? I raised a claw to silence Drex. Admiral Patel, let's be practical. Your species has fought impressively. But prolonged resistance will only result in more human deaths. The Empire requires certain resources from Earth and a number of living specimens for our biological archives. Provide these, acknowledge Imperial authority. And we can reach an accommodation that minimizes further bloodshed. Patel's mouth curved upward, showing teeth, a gesture Lieutenant Quaxi had warned might indicate amusement, aggression, or both. Living specimens? You mean slaves. And resources? You mean our planet's wealth. Admiral Vorzak, humans have a long history of dealing with conquerors. It rarely ends well for the conquerors. A younger human male stepped forward. Admiral, permission to show them Jakarta. Patel nodded, and the human activated a device. A projection appeared in the air between U.S. crude by our standards, but functional. It showed one of our primary landing zones, a city we'd secured early in the invasion, or rather, what remained of it. Crosian troops were barricaded in hardened positions, unable to move through the streets. Every patrol that emerged was immediately attacked from multiple directions. Buildings rigged with explosives collapsed on our soldiers. Civilian-looking humans would approach offering food or information, only to detonate hidden weapons. This is happening in every occupied city, Patel said. Your troops control their bases and little else. Meanwhile, humans are studying every piece of Crozian technology we capture. Your energy weapons, your communication systems, your ship components from vessels we have shot down. The younger human Colonel Rivera, according to his introduction, spoke up. 3 days ago, we reverse-engineered the targeting system for your orbital bombardment platforms. Yesterday, we tested our countermeasures. Your fleet cruiser Dominant suffered mysterious targeting system failures before exploding in orbit. Wasn't an accident. I felt my hemolymph run cold. The Dominant's destruction had been reported as an internal reactor failure, 8,000 Crozians lost. If humans could already interfere with our most secure weapons systems. You are bluffing, Commander Drex said, but his voice lacked conviction. Here's our proposal, Admiral Patel continued as if Drex hadn't spoken. Withdraw your forces from Earth. Return all human captives. Establish an exclusion zone around our solar system. In exchange, we won't pursue your retreating forces. And we will consider formal diplomatic relations with the Crozian Empire in 50 Earth years once we have had time to develop appropriate interstellar capabilities. That's not a negotiation. That's a demand for our complete withdrawal, Drex exclaimed. Yes, Patel agreed simply. It is. The Empire does not retreat, I said, trying to maintain dignity. In 8,000 years, we have never abandoned a conquest. Colonel Rivera made a strange barking sound laughter, according to our cultural briefing. Congratulations. You have never met humans before. We are something of a special case. Another human, a female scientist called Dr. Okafor, slid a data device across the table. This contains our complete analysis of Crozian biology. Based on your dead. You are susceptible to 17 Earth bacteria and viruses that we could weaponize tomorrow. Your methane respiratory supplements can be ignited with simple electrical charges. Your ship's hull material deteriorates when exposed to a common earth acid that we produce, industrially in massive quantities. I stared at the device, then at Dr. Okafor. You are threatening biological warfare? We are demonstrating that we understand you better than you understand us, Patel interjected, and that our learning curve is steep. Every day you remain is another day we adapt to defeat you more efficiently. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. These humans weren't just fighting with desperate courage, they were systematically analyzing our weaknesses, adapting their strategies, and developing new weapons specifically designed to kill Crozians. I must consult with Imperial Command, I finally said. Patel nodded. You have 24 hours. After that, we launch coordinated offensives against all your positions simultaneously. And Admiral Vorzak? The next wave of attacks won't be aimed at reclaiming territory. They will be focused on maximizing Crozian casualties. And as the human delegation withdrew, Commander Drex turned to me, his exoskeleton pale with stress. They can't possibly be as dangerous as they claim. Lieutenant Caxi, who had been silently analyzing the entire exchange, finally spoke. Sir, human historical records show a pattern. When threatened with extinction or subjugation, they don't surrender, they innovate. In their Second World War, they went from basic flight to atomic weapons in 6 years. Their technological adaptation rate under pressure is unprecedented among known species. I gestured to the data device Dr. Okafor had left. Analyze this. Verify their claims about our biological vulnerabilities. As Caxi took the device, I gazed out the viewport at the blue-green planet below. Such a small world to cause so much trouble. Sir, Caxi said quietly, there's something else you should know about humans. They have a concept in their military thinking. They call it proportional response. Meaning? meaning they typically respond to aggression with similar levels of force. But they are fully capable of disproportionate response when they feel existentially threatened. If they believe we intend to enslave or exterminate them. I didn't need him to finish the thought. The implications were clear and terrifying. Admiral Vorzak, your recommendation is denied. The Empire does not retreat. Supreme Commander Ziltharak's holographic image loomed large in my private chamber, his segmented eyes showing no emotion. Supreme Commander, with respect, you are not seeing the situation clearly, I insisted. These humans are primitives who got lucky, Ziltharak interrupted. Your casualty reports are concerning, but not unprecedented for a species showing unusual resistance. I'm dispatching the 7th Imperial Fleet to reinforce your position. 3,000 ships, 20 million troops. We will crush this resistance completely. My antennae drooped in dismay. Sir, more troops won't solve this problem. The humans are adapting to our technology, our tactics, our biology. They are not fighting conventionally, they are fighting asymmetrically, targeting our vulnerabilities with precision. Ziltharak's mandibles clicked in annoyance. Admiral Vorzak, you sound like you admire these creatures. I respect their capabilities, I corrected, as any prudent military commander should. Their learning curve is unlike anything in our records. They have already damaged one of our orbital platforms and are developing biological weapons specifically tailored to Crosian physiology. Biological weapons? For the first time, Ziltharak showed a flicker of concern. Yes, sir, and chemical agents that could render our atmospheric systems inoperable. They have also begun adapting our own technology against us with alarming speed. The Supreme Commander was silent for several moments. Your recommendation is still denied, Admiral. However, I will authorize you to continue negotiations as a delaying tactic. Keep the humans talking until reinforcements arrive. The 7th Fleet will reach Earth in approximately 30 rotation cycles. The hologram flickered out before I could protest further. I slumped into my resting cradle, fatigue washing over me. 30 cycles. By then, how many more Crosian lives would be lost? How much more Crosian technology would the humans have reverse-engineered? A soft chime announced Lieutenant Caxi's presence. Enter, I called. Caxi appeared, his normally composed demeanor visibly shaken. Sir, we have completed analysis of the human data device. Their biological assessment is accurate, disturbingly so. They have identified vulnerabilities in our respiratory, circulatory, and nervous systems that even our own medics consider classified information. How? I demanded. How could they learn so much so quickly? They are natural pattern recognizers, sir, and they have been studying our dead. But there's more. Caxi's voice dropped. We have intercepted communications indicating they are already synthesizing compounds that target these vulnerabilities. And they are preparing to aerosolize them for deployment against our ground forces. I felt sick. Time estimate. Days, not cycles. And sir, there's another development. Our long-range sensors have detected unusual activity in their asteroid belt. They appear to be attaching primitive propulsion systems to large asteroids. They are weaponizing their own asteroids, I realized aloud. Preparing kinetic bombardment capabilities. Caxi nodded grimly. Their technology may be primitive, but their understanding of physics is sophisticated. A sufficiently large asteroid accelerated toward our fleet formations would cause catastrophic damage regardless of our shield technology. Commander Drex burst into my chamber without announcing himself, a serious breach of protocol that I immediately forgave when I saw his agitated state. Sir, the humans have launched simultaneous attacks on all our ground positions. They are using our own weapons against us. The main view screen activated, showing chaotic scenes from multiple battlefronts. Human soldiers wielding modified Crosian plasma rifles. Human vehicles mounted with our energy cannons. And most disturbingly, humans wearing crude adaptations of our exoskeleton armor, making them nearly as strong as Crosian warriors. Casualties? I asked, already dreading the answer. 30% of ground forces in the first hour, Drex reported, his voice hollow. They are targeting command centers with precision strikes. Communications are failing across multiple sectors. And sir, they have somehow obtained our encryption protocols. They are broadcasting false retreat orders on our command channels. I watched the screens in stunned silence. This wasn't just resistance, it was systematic dismantling of our occupation force. Admiral Patel is requesting to speak with you, Kaxi said quietly. She says it's urgent. Put her through. Admiral Patel's face appeared on screen. Unlike our previous meeting, she wasn't wearing formal attire but what appeared to be battle dress. Background noises suggested she was in some kind of command center. Admiral Vorzak, I assume you are watching the current situation unfold, she said without preamble. Admiral Patel, your attacks violate the negotiation period, which ended 8 hours ago. She cut in. You requested 24 hours. We gave you 32 before commencing operations. I couldn't argue with that. What do you want? To avoid unnecessary bloodshed. Our offensive will continue until all Crosian forces are eliminated from Earth's surface. However, we are prepared to allow safe passage for your troops to evacuation points if you agree to our original terms. And if I refuse? Patel's expression hardened. Then we will continue adapting to your weaknesses faster than you can replace your losses. We have already synthesized targeted bioweapons that will be deployed against your forces within 12 hours. We have redirected 17 asteroids that will impact your fleet formations within 3 days. And we have decrypted enough of your neural network protocols to begin broadcasting signals that will disrupt your troops' cognitive functions. It couldn't be true. It shouldn't be true. And yet, the evidence was playing out on every battlefield screen I could see. You are bluffing, I said, but with no conviction. Admiral Vorzak, humans have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. You have created the greatest necessity we have ever faced as a species, our survival. In response, we are innovating at rates unprecedented in our history. She leaned closer to the screen. We don't want to exterminate your species. We don't want an interstellar war. We just want you off our planet. The choice is yours whether that happens with or without further Crosian casualties. As the transmission ended, I turned to my officers. Options? Drex, always the hardliner, straightened his posture. We fight to the last Crosian, as honor demands. Kaxi, more practical, shook his head. Sir, at current loss rates, we will have no functional ground force within 2 human days. Our orbital positions are increasingly vulnerable to their asteroid weapons and whatever else they are developing. Strategic withdrawal to beyond their moon while awaiting reinforcements would be prudent. I considered both viewpoints, along with the greater context. The Empire had never retreated, but the Empire had never faced a species like humans before. Their combination of desperate courage, adaptive intelligence, and sheer numbers made them uniquely dangerous. Commander Drex, prepare evacuation protocols for all ground forces. Lieutenant Q. Kaxi, analyze optimal withdrawal patterns to minimize our vulnerability to asteroid strikes. I'm going to speak with Admiral Patel. Sir. Drex protested. The Supreme Commander ordered. I know what he ordered. I also know what I'm seeing. Prepare the evacuation protocols, Commander. That's an order. As my officers departed, I stared at the view screen still showing the battle unfolding below. Humans swarming Crosian positions, using our own technology against us with brutal efficiency. What kind of species did that? A species that refused to be conquered. A species that adapted faster than any we'd ever encountered. The most dangerous kind of species in the galaxy. And we had just awakened them to their potential. The judgment chamber of the Imperial Tribunal loomed around me, its vast, vaulted ceiling lost in shadows. Thousands of Crozian eyes stared down from the tiered seating military officers, government officials, and ordinary citizens gathered to witness my court-martial. Admiral Grek Vorzak, Supreme Commander Ziltharak's voice boomed across the chamber. You stand accused of dereliction of duty, cowardice in the face of the enemy, and treason against the Crozian Empire. How do you plead? I straightened my posture, ignoring the ceremonial restraints on my limbs. Not guilty, Supreme Commander. I acted to preserve Crozian lives and the long-term security of the Empire. Murmurs rippled through the audience. In the 8,000-year history of the Empire, no military commander had ever ordered a retreat, and certainly not one who then defended the decision. Preserve the Empire? By running from primitives? Ziltharak's mandibles clicked in derision. You abandoned an imperial conquest, surrendered Crozian territory, and fled like prey. I conducted a strategic withdrawal in the face of an unprecedented threat, I corrected firmly. If I may present evidence to support my assessment? Ziltharak glanced at the other tribunal members, then nodded reluctantly. Proceed. I gestured to Lieutenant Caxi, who had been permitted to attend as my sole witness. He activated a holographic display in the center of the chamber. The species known as humans demonstrated adaptation rates that defy all previous Imperial encounters, I began. Within weeks of first contact, they had reverse-engineered portions of our technology, identified our biological vulnerabilities, and developed targeted countermeasures for our military advantages. The holographic display showed footage from the Earth battle's humans using modified Crozian weapons, wearing crude adaptations of our armor, deploying explosives specifically designed to penetrate our shields. Most concerning was their rate of technological assimilation, I continued. Based on recovered human communications, their weapons development increased by approximate factors of 50 under the pressure of our invasion. They were literally weaponizing their entire planet against us, from microorganisms to asteroids. I gestured to Caxi, who displayed a new set of images, the devastating attacks that had preceded our withdrawal. Crozian troops collapsing from weaponized pathogens, our ships maneuvering desperately to avoid human-launched asteroids, our communications systems compromised by human counterintelligence. Had we remained, the 7th Fleet would have arrived to find no surviving occupation force and a human species fully prepared for space combat, armed with our own technology. Speculation. Ziltharak interrupted. You cannot know what would have happened. With respect, Supreme Commander, we can make educational projections based on demonstrated human capabilities, I countered. Lieutenant Caxi, please display the post-withdrawal intelligence. The holographic display shifted to show recent reconnaissance images of Earth. In the 3 months since our departure, the humans had constructed orbital defense platforms using salvaged Crozian technology. They deployed a rudimentary early warning system extending to the edge of their solar system. Begun converting their asteroid belt into both mining operations and defensive weaponry. Adapted our FTL communication technology to establish an interplanetary defense network. 3 months, I emphasized. In 3 months, they have advanced their space capabilities by what would normally require decades. And they are accelerating. Our xenopsychologists now suggest humans may achieve independent FTL travel within 5 years, not the 50 they originally estimated. The tribunal chamber had fallen completely silent. Even Ziltharak appeared disturbed by the evidence. What's more concerning, I continued, is their unified response. Before our arrival, humans were divided into competing nation-states. Our invasion has united them in ways their own history suggests is unprecedented. They now have a common enemy, us, and a common goal, ensuring no alien species ever threatens them again. You paint a grim picture, Admiral, one of the other tribunal members noted. But it doesn't explain why you didn't wait for reinforcements as ordered. Because every day we remained on Earth accelerated human adaptation and increased our casualties, I replied. The Seventh Fleet would have arrived to face not just adapted humans, but a species that had fully integrated our technology with their own innovation. Our losses would have been catastrophic, perhaps even the entire fleet. I straightened to my full height, looking directly at Ziltharak. Supreme Commander, I withdrew our forces not from cowardice, but from strategic necessity. The Empire has conquered 3,000 species across 7 galaxies. But we have never encountered one like humans. They combine traits we have seen individually in other species, the swarming tactics of the Vrex, the adaptive intelligence of the Meridian, the sacrifice ethos of the Kaldar, but never all in one species. Caxi displayed one final image, a human child examining a damaged piece of Crosian technology, already beginning to disassemble and understand it. This is perhaps most disturbing of all, I said quietly. Human young are encouraged to experiment, question, and learn. Their curiosity is not just permitted but cultivated. They pass knowledge between generations with remarkable efficiency. This may explain their unusual adaptability. It's woven into their development process. Ziltharak studied the image for a long moment. What is your recommendation, then, Admiral Vorzak? Shall the Empire simply concede an entire resource-rich planet to these humans? Yes, I said simply, causing another wave of murmurs. More specifically, I recommend we establish formal diplomatic relations with Earth, negotiate limited trade agreements, and most importantly, share certain technologies with them voluntarily. Share our technology? With primitives? Ziltharak was aghast. With a species that will obtain it regardless, I corrected. If we provide it on our terms, we gain diplomatic leverage and potentially an ally. If we withhold it, they will develop it themselves, possibly in ways more dangerous to us than if we had guided their progress. I gestured to encompass the entire chamber. The Empire has never retreated because we have never needed to. We have never negotiated with a defeated enemy because no defeated enemy has ever posed a continued threat. Humans are different. They do not think like us. They do not fight like us. And most importantly, they do not learn like us. The tribunal fell silent, considering my words. Finally, Ziltharak spoke. Admiral Vorzak, this tribunal will deliberate on your testimony. Until our judgment is rendered, you will remain in custody. As Imperial guards led me from the chamber, Caxi managed to speak quietly as I passed. The Empress has taken personal interest in your case, sir. She's reviewing the human data directly. I felt a flicker of hope. The Empress was known for her pragmatism, unlike her more militaristic advisors. 3 days later, I stood once more before the tribunal. The chamber was less crowded this time, only high officials and military commanders permitted to attend. Ziltharak's expression was unreadable as he addressed me. Admiral Grek Vorzak, this tribunal has reached its decision. I prepared myself for punishment, exile at best, execution at worst. By direct intervention of Her Imperial Majesty, all charges against you are dismissed. The chamber erupted in shocked clicks and whistles. Ziltharak raised his primary limbs for silence. Furthermore, you are promoted to the rank of High Admiral and appointed as Imperial Envoy to Earth, with full authority to establish diplomatic relations with the human species. I could scarcely process what I was hearing. Not only exonerated, but promoted? The Empress has reviewed your evidence personally, Ziltharak continued, sounding less than pleased. She agrees with your assessment that humans represent both an unprecedented threat and a potential opportunity. Your mission will be to negotiate a peace that serves Imperial interests while preventing further conflict. As the tribunal concluded, Lieutenant Caxi, now promoted to commander, approached me. Congratulations, High Admiral, though I suspect your new assignment may prove more challenging than the court-martial. I chittered in grim amusement. Indeed. I must somehow convince a species that nearly defeated us that they should trust us. At least you won't be alone, Caxi replied. The Empress has assigned a full diplomatic corps to your mission, including xenocultural specialists and technology exchange advisors. As we walked from the chamber, I contemplated the task ahead, establishing peaceful relations with a species that had every reason to hate us, convincing the Empire to treat humans as equals rather than subjects, preventing what could become the most destructive interstellar war in Imperial history. Commander Caxi, I said, prepare a complete briefing on human diplomatic protocols. If we are to succeed in this mission, we need to understand how humans negotiate. Already in progress, sir. Though there's one human concept that keeps appearing in all our research. Which is? They call it our respect. It appears to be fundamental to their diplomatic interactions. I considered this. Respect. An acknowledgement of worth or capability. Interesting that a species so physically fragile places such importance on intangible recognition. Perhaps that's why they fought so fiercely, Caxi suggested. Not just for survival, but for respect. As we boarded the diplomatic vessel that would return us to Earth, I gazed out at the stars. Somewhere out there, on a small blue planet, humans were preparing for our return, this time not as conquerors, but as emissaries. What kind of reception awaited us? I couldn't be certain. But one thing was clear, the galaxy had changed forever. The Crosian Empire had met its match in a species that refused to be conquered. And just perhaps, that was exactly what we needed.